Welcome back to Startup Dugout by Dell Technologies, a podcast series where we talk to entrepreneurs from India's biggest tech startups to go back to that time when. That time when you needed allies, that time when you needed sound advice and good mentors, that time when you were looking for the right tech partners who can accelerate growth. I'm Suchita Salwan, the founder and CEO of Little Black Book and a member of Forbes India and Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 lists, and your host for this episode of Startup Dugout. Little Black Book, or LBB, started as a humble Tumblr blog. Today, it is India's largest online discovery and shopping platform with an objective to seek out and support local businesses. On Startup Dugout by Dell Technologies, we discover how industry leaders respond to challenges in their entrepreneurial journeys. We also learn how initiatives like Dell for Startups empowers companies through innovative technology, strategic guidance, proven practical capabilities, and expert consulting assistance. On this episode, I sit down with the founder and CEO of Awfis Space Solutions, Amit Ramani. Since its inception in April 2015, Awfis has evolved from being a co-working network to a fully tech-enabled workspace solutions platform that provides a wide range of products based on workspace requirements to cater to the modern workforce. Awfis has a member base of more than 1,500 companies, ranging from Fortune 500 companies to emerging startups, and focuses on customer centricity. It currently has a network of co-working spaces with 150 centers and 88,000 seats across 17 cities. We talk about the effects of the pandemic on the workspace, creating spaces for the emerging Gen Z workforce, and the role of technology in the workspace in the sharing economy. So Amit, thanks so much for joining us today. Awfis has had quite the journey in the last 8 years, from providing just-in-time space solutions rather than the traditional long-term office space setups to now hosting a plethora of different products and services catering to the more hybrid model of a workspace that's obviously gained a lot of popularity in a post-COVID world. How easy or challenging have all the transitions and changes been for you?
So I think clearly, COVID was a big, change moment in the lifestyle of what I would call as the commercial real estate arena. And, pre-COVID, if you looked at the industry, it was primarily being driven by SMEs and maybe, mid-sized corporates and startups, right? They were early adopters of co-working. So our client base primarily used to focus almost 70-75% on those three areas. And when COVID hit, obviously it changed the world completely. Because if people are never going to come back to work, then I would have had to look for something else to do. And so we all got paranoid. And clearly what we felt was that if people did not take that plunge to come back, because it was the largest human experiment where all of us probably for anywhere between 3 to 6 months were working primarily from home. And then things started stabilizing. And I think what we saw early signs of was that the enterprises were fence sitters before COVID and clearly took a plunge into coming onto co-working and the flex space arena. And once that happens, because they, if you look at ITS consumption, that's almost 35-40% of the total commercial real estate take-up. And when that started happening and larger companies started coming into it, the market just boomed. And we saw early signs of it. We were essentially 50 locations prior to COVID in March of 2020. And then we hit the pedal hard, and now today we are 150 locations, almost 90,000 seats in 17 cities. Second thing which we understood was that people will come back to some format, right? They're not gonna, Indian homes are not structured to be everybody be able to work from home, be it the husband and the wife or kids, doing their online schooling, etc. So we've always knew that people will come back to some other space, right? Now, what that other space could be, it could be the conventional space, could be co-working, could be something near home, could be a coffee shop. So we felt that, clearly we had to expand the platform because our customers came to us for co-working pre-COVID, but post that we started what we call as Office Enterprise Solutions, where we did managed office with large companies. We started Office Transform, which was basically our design and build turnkey fit out business. We started Office Care, which was almost now today has 3,000 people, and is our facility management business, both hard and soft FM services. And then we have Office Now, which is our on-demand solution. So you can book a meeting room for an hour or a seat for a day. And those are all options that are available to our customers. So we went from co-working to expanding the network to basically becoming a platform.
So real verticalization and going deep into the sort of lifespan of all things workforce. Talk to me a little bit about what's the agility that you think you yourself as well as your team has had to bring into the culture of all things office to deliver on this, right? Because this isn't going to be we're all entrepreneurs. It's never one challenge. It'll be COVID one. It'll be something else 2 to 3 years later. So culturally, how have you transformed or used all things COVID to transform your agility to adapt to changing work demands?
Yeah, so clearly, I think if we look at the whole last 3 years, I think the reason we survived was because we were on the move, right? We were agile to react to what was happening. If you ask somebody in April of 2020 what would happen in 3 years, I think nobody had the crystal ball, right? Including us. I mean, we did not know what was going to happen. Half of our customer base left in the first 3 months. As I said, a large portion of our business used to be small companies and mid-sized companies and startups, and they were on smaller tenures and shorter tenures and lower cohort sizes, and they left overnight. So half of the business just went away. So I think from our standpoint, what we were very focused on was on our customers. And I think what we have truly understood over the last 3 years is if you do right by the customer, they will stick by you. So one, I think the teams understood the customer centricity as a very, very important lesson during COVID. Anybody that we took care of, anybody that we bent over backwards to accommodate has stayed with us or continued to expand with us. Second, I think the teams understood that in a very short time, when such a catastrophic event and a once-in-a-century event happens, you have to be ready to respond, right? And because our teams came with that kind of a DNA where a portion of the team was clearly hospitality-focused, was customer-centric. There was a portion of the team that was very, very sales-oriented, and there was a portion of the team that's very strategic in nature. And I think all of us came together to deliver on the promise of our customer as creating a healthy and safe workspace. So I think that was the second. And as I said, we expanded into a platform. So today, from one source of revenue, we have 4 sources of revenue, almost equally distributed. Still, obviously, co-working and managed office contribute about 75% of business, but the other businesses, which are young businesses, contribute 25%. So today, if anything was to happen, right, we could shift gears and easily be able to accommodate what our customers were demanding at that stage. And you're right, I can't predict where the next event will happen, but I think we have future-proofed the business. So about 75% of our business today is in partnership with the landlord, which means that ups and downs of commercial real estate, we will truly deal with them as partners. Because if I was purely in a straight lease business, and as I say this to my team, and I've talked about it openly in public forums as well, is that if we were pure straight lease business in 2020, March of 2020, we would have gone bankrupt. So we have diversified the risk by mitigating it by partnering with the landlords, asking them to put majority of the capital, and that model has been successful. Out of the 150 plus locations, 120 locations today are in partnership with the landlord.
That's awesome. So, you spoke a lot about customer centricity. I think another thing that's come out in your past interviews has also been thinking about design, right? And spatial design as a key differentiator for all things office. Now, you've seen boomers, you've seen Gen X, you've seen the millennial workforce, and now you have this whole new breed of customers, which is the Gen Z consumer base entering the workforce and, throwing all sorts of spinners with their own demands and needs. Talk to us a little bit about how has Awfis responded to the very unique needs of Gen Z consumers and a little bit about the process over there.
Sure. So we sit in a very interesting cusp in history where all 4 generations are coexisting. Gen Xers, boomers, Gen Zs and the millennials, right? All of them come together in various formats. All of them have different demands and expectations out of the workspace. The good news is that the Gen Zs, in a recent survey by Deloitte, 60% of them hold a lot of value for the workspace. So I think clearly from our standpoint, we try to focus on a kind of a workspace design that essentially resonates with majority of the consumers at whatever age brackets they are in. And I think that happens through creating something that is visually appealing. Also, it gives optionality to people. So you should have the ability to have just a me space where I can concentrate and do our work. We should have sort of a us space where we can all congregate. And then there should be a space where you can, focus and do work with your external partners. So I think if it all comes together with the choice is given, I think that's the second point. And third, I think clearly it should be there should be enough for everybody. So if you come to our workspaces, there are collaborative zones where people can interact with each other. There are gaming zones where you can do some bit of recreation. There is a cafe where you have food options. Then you have a pantry space where people can bring in their own and have their meals, etc. Then we have some larger facilities. We have training spaces. So we provide enough and more amenities in our spaces that it kind of resonates with all age brackets, right? Maybe a cafe is cool for a Gen Z, but maybe you're having a space where people can have their own lunch is cool for a baby boomer that brings it from home. So I think if you have optionality, that works really well, and amenities that talks to people. Also, if you were to look at post COVID, the quality of the workspace and the design is very, very important. The whole factor of well-being, right? We are in the process of getting all our workspaces well certified, which is essentially focusing on the health and well-being of our customers today coming to our workspaces. So I think some of these elements have come into play. And we have adapted, and we are at version 5 of our standard program, which in a small journey of 8 years is the 5th version. In our gold product, we are at version 2. It's about a 2-year-old product. So I think we continue to hear the customer what works, and then kind of respond and redesign the spaces for them.
Absolutely. So I'd like to talk to you about your ideas on technology in a sharing economy. You've spoken about how tech can enable wider connectivity and facilitate productivity in a workspace, that too within a sharing economy. And, as you mentioned right now, really giving the optionality and the flexibility for a customer to choose who they want to be on that day, right? And the kind of work style that they want to have. Where are we in terms of technologically realizing this goal? And, when you think of the interplay of tech and the sharing economy and the workspace, what does the future look like?
So basically for us, if we look at the technology, we are a technology-enabled business. We are not a pure technology business, but we look at it as a, space as a service, right? So SaaS from that standpoint, and technology plays an enablement role for us. The way we look at technology in our business is in 3 parts. One, how does the customer engage with our technology, right? So from a visitor management system to an app that helps them order food and beverage in my space, or provide feedback to our community members, or engage with my community, or get offers from various alliance partners. I think that's the front end. And that's one part where our visitor management and our app and our website kind of play into that piece for our customers. The second piece is, how do we do things better for our spaces? So this would be our customer satisfaction scores. This would be tracking how our sales network is happening, tracking our renewals. So this is the digital transformation that we have spent over the last 4 years to make sure that we make the business more efficient in various aspects of customer centricity. Could be a better sales cycle, could be a better renewal cycle for us. So we've used technology to enable all of those pieces. And then final piece is that how do we make the facility more efficient? So from a office care app that allows me to track how my housekeeping is going on, to my electricity bills, to my electricity consumption, to my HVAC consumptions, to making sure that we have enough and more technology that we are making our facilities as energy efficient as possible, and then as streamlined from a management standpoint of the our team members that manage the hygiene of the spaces and multiple other areas. So I think these are three factors: customer facing pieces which enable them to have a great experience, then the digital transformation piece which allows us to be as a better business, increase our efficiency, and then the third piece is the efficiency of how technology plays role in getting better productivity out of the infrastructure that we manage today.
So, as a follow on to that, let me ask you, what is your favorite app, out of the three universes that you mentioned? What's been your favorite application of tech at Office? Any super interesting, application that you can tell us about? And also, what role has Dell played in your journey so far?
So I think from our standpoint, clearly whatever the customer interacts with, or the pieces of that app and website that they do, is the most interesting piece, because we get to learn about their behaviors, what their requirements are. For example, we curated a system where, customer sitting at their desk could order food and it would get delivered to them, right? So I think we keep building on some of those features there. As far as Dell goes, I think I think what I appreciate the most about Dell is their ability to continue to innovate, right? And then continue to listen to the customer and build products that are very, very customer focused, right? Be it from what they're offering in terms of the hardware that's being there and the ability to support some of the software. But I think most importantly, they listen to the customer and what their demands are and then react. And that's why they're one of the top companies, providing hardware, software, and multiple other solutions from the customer standpoint. So we obviously, look at such companies and draw inspiration from them to look at, how we can be agile, how we can be more innovative, and how can obviously we scale up and be at a scale of a Dell type, a similar Dell type company.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. It's wonderful to hear how Awfis has gone from providing just-in-time office space solutions to now using technology to help facilitate modern workspaces, and how Dell has been able to contribute to that. Now, apart from offering trustworthy digital solutions, Dell for Startups helps companies reach their goals and defines new routes for their success. They help startups in India to accelerate their digital journey and solve for some of the biggest challenges in the country, keeping Dell's core purpose in the forefront, creating technologies that drive human progress. We now head back to Startup Dugout by Dell Technologies to hear from Amit Ramani about how Awfis has expanded beyond Tier 1 cities and the role of the modern workplace in a post-pandemic world. Awesome. We're back and we're talking to Amit today. So Amit, moving from tech to real estate, where you obviously got your start, Awfis now has 150 centers across 17 Indian cities. And even though you started out in the metros, you've now expanded to tier 2 cities as well. Talk to us a little bit in terms of, what are the commercial real estate challenges that you see the second you step out of the top 8 to 10 odd cities in India?
So I think, clearly we've been talking about tier 2 cities for the last 18 months. And I think, people need to actually go to those cities to understand what's going on. It's transformation at a different level altogether, right? If you were to go to cities like Indore, you were to go to Nagpur, you were to go to Bhubaneswar, right? Take an example of a city like Nagpur. Maybe it's not on anybody's radar. East to west, north to south, every section of that city is connected by the metro. I don't think there is any tier 1 city in India that can claim that we are connected 100%, end to end. So I think what is happening now is that clearly companies that initially started focusing on the tier 1 cities, primarily because of access to talent and infrastructure, are now realizing that cities like Indore, Nagpur, Bhubaneswar, Kochi, Coimbatore, Madurai, etc., have the similar infrastructure. They have better educational facilities, they have medical facilities, and they have entertainment and lifestyle facilities, right? That's all one looks at, and they're probably 1/3 the price of any of the tier 1 cities today. Now, from that standpoint, the journey to these cities has already started. It actually started 12 months back when companies who were at the front end of procuring talent were going into these cities. If you look at the US, 25, 30 years ago, there was San Francisco, New York, and Chicago. Today, there are 25 cities which can claim to be urban centers. I think similar situation will happen, and I think, as I mentioned, we are already in 17. We'll probably add another two or three cities this year. The journey is one for talent. Second, if you look at the first tranche of why progress happened in the service industry, it was all outsourcing work, KPO, BPOs that came from global locations and were getting their work done. Today, India itself drives a lot of this requirement, right? If I am a food delivery app, my call center does not need to be in Bangalore. It can be in Indore, where I want Hindi speaking people more than I want English speaking people. Second, a lot of people want access to Bharat, right? Bharat happens in tier 2 and 3 and 4 cities. But if you want to go into tier 2 and 3 cities, you have to set up some base. So the level of companies that are setting up base here in these tier 2 cities is absolutely, I think, mind-boggling to say it, right? I mean, just to give you an example, as one operator, I have demand of 5,000 seats for a city like Jaipur. I have no supply available. So that tells you where, this will go. I think in the next 5 to 7 years, the tier 2 cities will grow at least 2x of tier 1. Obviously, the base is much smaller, but I think a large portion of the 40 million to about 60, 70 million journey that everybody talks about over the next 5-6 years of consumption every year, I think a large portion of that is going to come out of tier 2 cities.
Any interesting nuances about work, right, and one's relationship with work, because so much of that determines, not just your business, but an influx of other businesses coming into your tier 2 plus cities. Any interesting nuances, stories that you can share?
So I think, as I said, I think clearly, what is happening is, if you look at the companies, they first used to concentrate on 1 or 2 large campuses, and that's where they would set up all the infrastructure. Now, when COVID hit, everybody realized that people scattered across India.
Distributed workforce.
Absolutely, and that whole hybrid work today has not gone into just cities. So now there's focus on setting up not just 1 or 2 locations in a city, but 10 or 12 locations, which means work near home. Second change that happened, and I think, is the move into tier 2 cities, where now companies are going in and saying, well, if you live out in Nagpur, I want to be closer to you, so I'll go closer to the talent. And the funny part of all of this is, until and unless you go to these cities, I mean, you will not be able to realize what's the potential of the city. As an example, the best rave parties in India happen in Indore. I am not invited to them, but it is the rave capital of India, right? You would not realize that would happen in Indore. So I think there is a lot of, like for example, in Bhubaneswar today, the whole city is set up where the government is the largest provider of real estate in that city. They have built 25 grade A plus facilities where they are giving rent which is 1/3 of the market. Now, where in Bangalore or Mumbai will I find this, right? I mean, and that's the reason. And when you go in, those cities are gearing towards bringing people into those cities. You can feel that they're hungry to get talent, and obviously larger companies with their talent into those cities. So I think those are a couple of things which are very, very surprising, and I think very pleasantly surprising, that India is growing and Bharat is growing.
Next stop, Indore rave party. That's where we'll have round 2 of this conversation. So speaking of tier 2 cities, Awfis has major plans on expanding over the next year, targeting cities like Lucknow, Kochi, you mentioned Bhubaneswar, Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Indore, and so many more. In fact, you plan to double your portfolio by 2024 to about 250 odd centers. Where is Awfis at the moment on this journey to achieve this goal?
So we are well on track. Clearly, pre-COVID, every year we used to add about 4,000 to 5,000 seats. Now we add about 4,000 to 5,000 seats every month. So clearly, I think we have fast-tracked that. When I went to my team telling them about that we are going to go from 50 locations, which we had built actually over the first 5 years of the journey, and I said next 2 years we need to be 150, they all started laughing, right? And they said, which rave party are you coming back from, right? So I think from that standpoint, very clearly we are on that journey. We will touch 200 centers in the next 6 months, and then post that we will go to 250. Our supply acquisition teams are extremely active. We will add maybe one or two more cities, as I said earlier, and then concentrate on expanding in our tier 1 locations. 80-85% growth will come from there, and 15% will come from the tier 2 cities. And we are at that similar scale. As I said, it's just not about the center expansion. It's also about the other businesses that we have, including Transform and Care and Awfis now. And those businesses are expanding at a very, very fast clip. So the idea is of the concept that we look at it is of quick service real estate. So just like if you are thinking about fast food, the first brand that comes to mind is McDonald's. When you think about work, the first brand that should come to mind is Awfis. Second, from a platform standpoint, we want to be there for the customer when he wants us to manage his space, maintain his space, use it on demand, or basically use our space for a day and use it for 5 years. So I think we want to be there for the customer in any capacity that he chooses to work with us in providing that workspace solution.
So if we had to juxtapose this to the nature of the customer today, right? Obviously, courtesy COVID, there's been this push and pull where obviously on one end of the spectrum, you have what we discussed earlier, this decentralization, diversification of where an office is, right? And how much of it is HQ centered versus distributed across many other smaller markets and cities. The second thing that's also now happened is international companies looking at talent everywhere, right? So there's this globalization sort of network that's crept in where you've got companies from the US now having giant offices based out of India. When you look at this push and pull, this, going to where the customer is or going to where the talent is. And the second one also is giving talent the flexibility to operate from wherever they are. How do you design a workspace that caters to both of these, similar but opposing forces of distributed as well as a global workforce and therefore also global and distributed companies?
I think what COVID proved was that work could be done from anywhere, right? I think there are multiple people who came out and, thought leaders in the industries and CEOs of large corporations. They said productivity has not been impacted, which is the case because we survived the experiment for 2 years almost, working in some level of, I would say, a hybrid format. I think, and as a result, what's happened is that all of us realize that work can happen from anywhere. Clearly, technology today with Zoom and other solution tools, etc., and with the internet bandwidth speeds, with Geo coming to the market, has clearly ensured that you can be sitting from anywhere and getting your work done. Once you have done that separation, then the reality is that workspace or the space becomes a byproduct of work. Earlier it was I have to come to office to get my work done. Now it is I don't have to come to office to get my work done. I can get it done from anywhere. So the office has changed its meaning. And I think where it's clearly being, we see it, is that it is a place where you congregate to build your networks, to brainstorm, things which can't be done remotely effectively, right? I cannot have a conversation which might be a hard conversation or a brainstorming between 5 people over Zoom. We all realize that has limitations. I think so there are certain tasks which people will have to come together in whatever location, right? So clearly what we are seeing now as a trend is that at least people are asking their employees to come back at least 3 days a week. And they are creating tools, and we are obviously working with many of them to essentially create a rostering system. So I know when you're going to be there and I'm going to be there, so that we can kind of congregate together and we assemble those days, get those days together. Second piece of it is you have to make it meaningful for me, let's say in a city like Bangalore, to spend those 3 hours on the road to come to a location, right? It has to give me amenities. It has to be interesting. It has to give me something more than what I could not get done from home. So there are companies which are offering now food. They're offering parties on Fridays. They're offering outings, etc. So they are curating those areas. And ultimately, the distributed work, clearly people are looking at creating one, maybe you can't recreate let's say a 1,000-seater cafeteria everywhere. But at least what companies are now looking for is providing that flexibility and going to, let's say, operators like us who can at least provide those amenities, even if it's not an HQ location of a company. So even closer to home, companies can provide that kind of infra by partnering with, providers and operators like us.
No, absolutely. And, taking a cue from that, and my last question for you today is, we've discussed so much, right? You've spoken about your journey from catering to MSMEs to now obviously fitting out for large MNCs, the verticalization of the workforce. If I had to ask, of all things, Office rather, if I had to ask you at a slightly more meta level, right? When you think about the future of flexible workspaces, co-working spaces, and just office at large, and you compare that to what a customer's relationship today is with their work, because work means so many different things to so many people, right? Like you said, right now, in some cases it's a way for you to network and connect. For some people it's just a means to an end. Where do you see the future of office, and also where do you see the future of a customer's relationship with what work means to them in their life, and therefore also their office space?
So I think, if I was to first talk about, where we think the whole office, journey is going to go, and, the commercial real estate workspace journey is going to go. Co-working pre-COVID was about a 25 million square foot industry of a billion square feet in India. Today it is 75 million. And by a recent estimate of a CBRE report, 25% of the customers are going to basically adopt flex as part of their real estate strategy. Now, if that was to happen, then this is a 200 million square foot industry in the next 4 to 5 years, right? So the future looks bright. I think we got some tailwinds. I think people have become habitual about using flex and co-working. So I think the industry is here to stay, and it will have its moment in the sun over the next couple of years. I think there's going to be very strong interest, and so I think overall the industry will grow, and hopefully as part of that industry, being an industry leader, we will continue to grow. I think when it comes to the relationship with work, I think that relationship with work will always continue, right? Because the ultimate goal that all of us go through the journey of growing up, and then, having the vendor years, and then our, college years, and then obviously going to work, is essentially to have a meaningful lifestyle. And in a capitalistic economy, you will need to make money to, sustain yourself. So it's not that people will not work. I think that nature of work will change. We are seeing a lot of, with artificial intelligence, ChatGPT coming at the forefront of a lot of these discussions. I think when internet came, people evolved, and it only helped make us more productive. When the iPhone came, it made us more productive. I think some of these new technologies and new nature of work that is changing is only going to make the generation more smarter. They're only going to get, their work done in different ways. Now that different ways is already one avatar of that is distributed work, which has become mainstream now. The future of work could also mean that a lot of this will, the mundane work will get shifted to machines. So the nature of work will become much more collaborative. It will become much more focused on innovation, much more focused on, developing solutions which are not able to be done in isolation. I think isolation tasks will go away. So I think as a result, the workspace that people will curate, the us spaces will become much more forefront. Rather than just individual me spaces. I think that at a very basic level will happen. Distributed work is here to stay. I think if I was to talk about India, I think India is at least, from a standpoint, will overcome what probably takes in the West multiple years to develop. I think in India, that development happens very, very fast. So I think whatever is the future of work, I think India will adopt it very, very quickly.
And, to sum all of this up, what's the one piece of advice you'd love to give entrepreneurs? Because you've obviously seen it all, right? Specifically over the past 8 years, your final piece of advice.
So I think in this environment of where we have seen a lot of companies go, become unicorns, and then obviously now they're struggling. I think first principles is what works best, right? I mean, if your fundamentals at a unit economic level are clear and you're able to demonstrate that, then should be able to scale up. So I think first principles works the best. If you are a profitable company, you will sustain yourself irrespective of funding or no funding. That's my biggest advice to entrepreneurs who are looking to get into the business.
Absolutely. And kudos to you and all that you've built with Awfis. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much to Amit Ramani, founder and CEO of Awfis, for joining us on Startup Dugout by Dell Technologies. If you're an entrepreneur that's forging your path with your dreams, Dell for Startups can help you in your digital journey and transformation. For more details, check out the link in the episode description.